One of the things that I felt this year in raising money for my race was the number of responses I got from people who had already been tapped by Hillary's people or Edwards' people.
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.
It made it harder to raise money.
All right.
So that's an observation. The other is just, what are your comments, your observations about the money raised in the city council race this year? The amount and where it was? And
Well,
observations you might have.
I don't think it was way out of whack with, historically what it's been. I mean, I think I saw some examples of money I think was totally wasted on, like the Fisher campaign that I talked about, where they poured all this money into TV with a message that was kind of off target. It really, I mean, it shouldn't cost $200,000, $300,000 to get elected. The same. I mean, you remember, Tyrone Gates used to get like 2 billboards or something going around, and that was, he'd get elected. I mean, he'd show up 9th, but somebody had to finish 9th. And in those days, of course, it was, top vote getter was mayor, which is no longer the case. So, I think the limits on campaign contributions had an impact on that. It started to, push it down, push the top down a little bit. Back in the days when Heimlich and Winburn were in their glory on city council, they were raising this enormous amounts of money. You never knew when it would hit the ceiling. If they kept running, they'd be spending $1 million by now. If it weren't for term limits or moving on to other offices. So I think it's starting to maybe get a little bit under control, and I think that a lot of the smarter candidates are starting to spend their money a little smarter and not wasting it on nothing but, TV ads that are seen in Hamilton and Maysville, Kentucky, and Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
But Howard, you really have to, as a candidate, which I'm not, and won't be, but you really have to have the confidence to say, I'm not going to keep going for more money than I think I need. Now our campaign gave David credit for holding us tight at what we set our budget at the beginning, and he said, if I raise more, I'm not putting more into television. It's a waste. I'm not putting more here. But we kept saying, that's what the media focuses on. They focus on who raised the most money, who raised the next, who's in the top 9, and then those people are viewed by people that read the paper as the successful candidates. So you really have to be able to say, I don't care what the media says about my fundraising capabilities. Sure. I'm going to move on without it.
All I can tell you is I'm recovering from that. I don't really focus on that as much as I used to. I used to really be obsessed with it. But it really meant something in those days when you had like Phil Heimlich going $370,000. I mean, I can go all the way back to the first 6-figure campaign, which was Shabbat. And you're right, but in your case, I mean, David's a known commodity. He's known in the community. He's got a record. He needs enough money to go out and tell people about that record and make his case, and that's it. Then it's chips fall where they may.
But he's also going into his 4th term. Somebody in their first term who has not run, how can they say, well, that money's not going to matter to me as much? I don't care if the media says these people are going to be successful because they raised this money. I mean, you have to establish that position in order to say, okay, I'm not going to worry about it so much.
Well, you have to raise a certain amount of money to be able to do these things. Whether it's TV or direct mail or buying 5 million yard signs or whatever, you got to have some money. Now, you can also make the argument that raising money, depending on, obviously who you raise it from, shows some kind of support in the community. I mean, that's what the political parties look at, when they sit down and they want to endorse slates of candidates. Can you raise money? Who do you know? Who can write checks for you?
But a dollar doesn't equal a vote. You can get a lot of dollars from Indian Hill and other places outside the Cincinnati area, but not the city. And the number of people who can actually cast the vote for you is a different situation entirely.
Well, yeah, I mean, bulk of money comes from people who live outside the city because they got more money.
Yeah.
Talking about Heimlich, how do you think the Heimlich-Schmidt race is going to go in March?
Well, Kathy,
I mean, look
Heimlich
at the
and
crystal
Schmidt.
ball. I was
all
just
right,
curious.
let's make the assumption that there is going to be a Schmidt-Heimlich race in the spring. I'm not entirely convinced of that yet, because there's a long time between that. We haven't had any final deadlines. All right. There may not be a primary. If there is a primary, Gene Schmidt would definitely be the favorite, to beat Phil Heimlich in this thing. I mean, just given Phil Heimlich's recent history of running for office.
He's raised more money than she has.
Yeah,
There we go again.
I know, but you got to look at that district, and our friend Mr. Black here is learning this, I'm sure, each day. Yeah, but you have to look at this district and the way it's constructed with, the wealthy suburbs in Warren County and Hamilton County over here. Then you got this big glob of Claremont County in the middle that's got a whole lot of voters and Republican voters who are mostly they're going to vote for Gene Schmidt. I got news for you. And then you got to go out east of that, where Phil Heimlich, they don't know what the hell he is. And probably. I mean, they know he got voted out of office. People talk to me about, well, Phil Heimlich's got the, kind of the evangelical Christian types behind him and that sort of thing. Well, he does, but she does too, to a certain extent. I mean, like the right to life vote is kind of split. There's a whole lot of them who love Gene Schmidt, and there's a whole lot of them who are devoted to Heimlich. So that's kind of a split. If you're banking on Phil Heimlich to take Gene Schmidt out, I better take another bet.
The current issue of Cincinnati Magazine has an interview with her.
Yeah.
And the title was So Crazy After All These Years.
Yeah.
The author, I didn't recognize the name.
Howard, I was out of town for a couple of days, so I missed the impact of this, but Strickland's endorsement of Hillary in Iowa, at least where I was, it went, in national news, it went nowhere. I don't know what it was like around here. What was your comment?
For now, I mean, that's just like a political junkie story.
Okay.
That's who's interested in it. And clearly it's not going to turn any heads.
So it's disappointing as far as Hillary's people?
Well, no, it's not disappointing. He's a popular governor of a state that's going to be very important in the general election. It's a good card to have in your hand. And it doesn't mean that, you have to have Ted Strickland as your running mate either. But a strong, obviously, this is a strong Democratic governor can have an organization in place that can help get out the vote and raise money and do the kind of things for Hillary or Obama or John Edwards, whoever else it is. So it's a good thing to have, but it's not right now in the context of the primaries. Doesn't mean a whole lot. Jane?
I just want to say, within the context of the political junkies being interested in this kind of thing, for Obama/Strickland supporters, it was a big disappointment.
Yeah.
And I've heard comments from a number of those folks who were really kind of down and out about it. Yeah.
Well, there's only one Ted to go around. Yes.
What do you think the role of the religious right is in the future in Ohio politics?
That's a very good question, and I think it's like it is at the national level. I think it's changing quite a bit. I don't think that you can look at that as a monolithic